Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed building video. So in today's video, it's quite a long one, so I'd really encourage you to get a cup of tea or a snack or whatever you want to eat and drink. But I am building a modern family home, so I haven't actually built a modern family home in a very long time. I believe the last time I built a modern family home was just after Get Famous came out, I believe. So that was quite a long time ago, and that was more like a modern mansion. I absolutely love building modern houses. It's one of my favourite things to build in The Sims, but I often tend to go for more family style houses, like more traditional looking, and that is just because I find that more people want to play in more traditional style houses, so I always just tend to build them just so more people have like more options to download more of them style houses. But today I just really wanted to build something modern, and I'm so happy with the way this one turned out. I did actually use a reference picture for this, so I was looking at a picture and just trying to mimic the build. I only had a picture for the front of the house though, so the back of the house I just kind of completely made up in my head. If I can find it, I'll try and link it in the description box down below so you can kind of go and see the picture that I was looking at. But this is built in Newcrest, so this is built on currently a 30 by 20 lot, but I actually end up moving it because the house itself is so big. Once I got around to actually doing the garden, I realised the little amount of space that I had, and I didn't want to have this really big grand modern house and then a really small like patio for a garden. So I do actually end up moving it to the lot, which actually is across the street, so it's completely opposite this current lot, and it's I believe it's a 30 by 40. It's in Newcrest. It's right next to the 50 by 40 lot, so it is one of the bigger lots in the world, and I absolutely love this house. I'm so happy the way it turned out, and I absolutely love the garden. The garden is probably one of my favorite places in the house. I just absolutely love it. This house in total took me 7.5 hours to build, which is insane. I don't know how it took me that long, but it did. And 5 hours of that was just building the exterior. So I had a few breaks in between this. I didn't build this like continuously. I did have a few breaks, but once I finished the exterior, I kind of looked at the footage and it was already up to 5 hours, and I couldn't believe how it took me so long, but it did. But I'm absolutely so happy with it, and I'm really proud of this house. I think this probably is one of my favorite builds I've ever done, and it definitely is my favorite modern style build that I've ever done. But then again, I don't really typically tend to do a lot of them, but I really hope that you guys like it. If you would like to download it, it will be on the gallery. You can search my origin ID, which is JessicapieYT, or you can search with hashtag JessicapieYT or just Jessicapie, and then you can find me that way, and then you can download this and have it in your game. But make sure when you actually download it that you turn on bb.moveobjects, because I did use the move object cheats in this house, like all of my houses. So the same goes for all of my builds really. Whenever you download them off the gallery, just make sure like the bb move objects cheat is on, so nothing will be funnily placed. Funnily, is that even a word? Funny placed, or just in an odd way, or there might be some mission objects or whatever. Just make sure you turn on that cheat if you'd like to download this house. But as you can kind of see, I've already kind of got the structure of the house together, and we're only 3 minutes in. So again, I don't know how just the exterior took me 5 hours, but it did. I think a lot of the time I was just kind of zooming around the house and just looking at it. I did cut that out, but I was just so happy how it was coming together. I just kept on like just going around the house and just kind of admiring it in a way, although that sounds a little bit silly, but I really do love this house, and I can't actually wait to play in this house. So this house I actually built for a family, which I kind of imagine would be more of an older family. So I was kind of thinking, because there is no real kid objects in this house, because I wanted it to be very modern, and I didn't feel like any of the kid objects kind of fitted in with the modern theme. So when I was building this, I did actually have a backstory in my mind for kind of the people that would live here, and the backstory was that it was a family and they kind of owned a real estate business. So obviously we can't do that in the game, but I'll come back to that in a minute. So they kind of own a real estate company, they sell houses for a living, and maybe it's a family owned business, maybe they've got an office in Newcrest somewhere, and this is just kind of where they all live together. I know sadly we can't actually have that job in The Sims, but maybe it could come eventually. I'm not completely sure. There is kind of like a teaser going around at the minute, or not really a teaser, everyone's kind of speaking about a load of different gaming company websites, so like Instant Gaming, and there's a few others which I've completely forgotten the name of, but they've all listed a tropical adventure kind of pack for The Sims 4, but obviously we don't have one yet. And with EA Play on Saturday, so it's only a few days away, I kind of think that maybe they're going to announce it then, or I'm kind of hoping that they're going to announce it then, because we haven't had anything in so long, and it'll be really, really nice to have a new pack. And a lot of people seem to think it is Tropical Paradise or some kind of tropical world expansion, just because we haven't had anything in a while, and there is a lot of kind of game companies all listing the same kind of thing. But the only thing that makes me think that it could not possibly be one is the fact that a few of the websites have actually listed a description for the pack, which was actually someone in the community. They actually posted it for kind of like their ideal of an ideal tropical adventure pack. So I don't know if that made any sense, but basically they put a description in the kind of game description box, but it was actually a description that someone said that they would love to see for The Sims, and it was kind of like the exact same thing. So it kind of makes me think that maybe it's not. But then there is also kind of like another hint towards a tropical pack. So with Strangerville, we kind of got like this bar decor object. So it was kind of like a little fake bar, which you can just put behind like a normal type kind of bar. And on it there was like this little calendar, and it had like this little island world on it. And I don't want to jump to conclusions, but ever since we got seasons, so when we got seasons, we obviously got some calendars, and there was 4 calendars, and on each kind of swatch of the calendars there was a picture of like a cat and a dog, in like 2 cats and 2 dogs, and then kind of different colors to represent different seasons. And obviously we hadn't got cats and dogs at this point, so we had no idea what was happening, and that was kind of like a slight hint, even though they never confirmed that that was a hint or anything like that. But the next pack was kind of like a cats and dogs pack, or it was the cats and dogs pack, so maybe it is a Tropical Paradise. I'm not completely sure. I obviously would be so happy if we got a tropical adventure kind of world, and I'm just thinking about all the different builds that I could do right now, and I'm so happy if it is. I do kind of want it to be university, but if I'm honest, I'm just really happy with whatever the company brings out. I am so happy and so grateful that they bring out so many different expansion packs and game packs every single year, and there is a lot of people already complaining about it, and I just see it as a way, it might not be what you particularly want at this time, but there's loads of people, there is millions of people that play the game, so the game company is not going to alter everything to be just what one person wants. So I am just so happy with whatever it is, no matter if it's even something completely different. It might not be university, and it might not be tropical adventure, it could be something that no one expected, like no one expected Strangerville at all. So I'm really open to whatever it is. I'm just really excited for the live stream on Saturday, because we have had such a dry patch in The Sims at the minute. There has not been really any new content to properly play with, and I just really am excited for anything that they bring out, and I cannot wait. If you haven't already, you can actually go onto The Sims YouTube channel and set a reminder for the live stream. So on The Sims YouTube channel, there is kind of like a live stream kind of queued in a way, so it says that it's kind of like scheduled, like that's probably the best way to put it, and you can actually set a reminder. So if you haven't already and you really want to watch it, make sure you set a reminder. I'm not sure what time it's going to be in different parts of the world. I know it's like 12 o'clock or around that kind of time in LA, because I think that's what it says on the website, but in kind of like Greenwich Mean Time, or like British summertime, whatever you want to call it, the time zone in England, it comes out at 8 p.m. So make sure, if you haven't already, that you actually set a reminder on your phone or just on your computer, however you want to set it, and so you can actually be there and watch the live stream. But moving on and actually speaking about the build a little bit, so as you can kind of see, I've moved on and I'm doing the garden, and you can kind of see I've done a little bit of the landscaping. I think I do a little bit more just on one of the side of the houses, and that's basically done. But with the landscaping, I did cut the majority of it out because it took me so long. I think that's actually what ranked up the amount of hours that I spent building this, is just the landscaping. And as you can kind of notice, I went for a very white theme with the landscaping, so I didn't want to use any kind of like pink flowers or crazy colour flowers. I wanted it to look very modern and kind of suit the house, and I didn't feel like having all these different kind of colour flowers would kind of suit it. And so I actually did something which I've never done before, and I just used white plants. There might be a few little plants that are a little bit yellow, but they're kind of in between the yellow and the white kind of like color scheme, so it's kind of basically all white, and I really love this. I love the way it turned out. You can kind of see that I'm just doing a little bit more landscaping here, but I just didn't feel like all these different colours would kind of suit it. And I feel like with it being such a modern house, it'll be fun to kind of experiment with just one colour of flower. But I did kind of mix up the kind of greens in the house, so I used loads of different types of green plants which kind of have different shades of green, which I really like. I use this cats and dogs little plant, and it's one of my favourite plants that we actually have in the game, and I just used it in multiple different colours. It's one of my favourite plants that we have, and it's just so lovely. It comes in so many different swatches, so it's quite a lot of them just kind of like spreaded throughout the landscaping. And then I just mix it with loads of different base game plants. Like, I didn't even really use that much romantic garden stuff. Typically I absolutely love romantic garden stuff and I use the flowers all the time. I did use a few of them, but not as much as I normally would, and I only used them in the white swatch, which I really appreciate because obviously all the landscaping is in white, and so they could kind of fit in with this landscaping as all the landscaping is white. But as you can kind of see, I'm just adding a little bit more just to that little bit on the side, just because I felt like it looked a little bit plain and boring and bare, and so I just kind of added some more just to kind of make it look a little bit more lived in and a little bit more just nicer in a way. But now I'm doing kind of like the little drop down to the back garden. So obviously the house is all on a foundation, and I still wanted the back garden to be on a foundation, but I didn't want it to be on the same kind of foundation. And so obviously where we can't connect two different heights, I had to work around it, and so I used the terrain manipulation and just kind of created a little bit of a hill, and then put the stairs onto that hill, and then just kind of put the tiles or the floorboarding, whatever you want to call it, over them, and it just kind of flattened it out. I still, like I said, I still wanted there to be kind of like a modern patio, but I just didn't want it to be on the same height. One of my favourite things about the garden is actually this little pool house which I'm just about to create, and it is literally so lovely, and I'm so happy the way it turned out. I wanted it to be kind of like a place where everyone can come and chill out and relax and just kind of have a few drinks and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted there to be some kind of little outdoor house that people could, if they wanted to, come and relax in. And so I created this little pool house, and I absolutely love it. I've never done this before, and I did this thing with the windows. So I kind of created this zigzag on the wall, and then I placed some like kind of full length windows on it, and then I deleted the wall but the windows remain, and it kind of looks like folding doors, and I just absolutely love it. I've seen so many people do this before, but I've just never done it myself, and I love it. Like, I want to do this in all of my builds now just because I really love the look of it. And where it is kind of like a pool house, it's still kind of, the lighting is a little bit strange in here, I am going to say that, but I just think it's such a nice little place to come out and like just chill of an evening time. I did actually switch to the kind of like evening mode / nighttime mode to kind of see what it would look like when it was kind of like that time of the day, and it still looks so beautiful. So I'm so happy with this, and like I said, I want to do this in all of my houses now just because I really love them little folding doors. I think it's such a cool little idea. Obviously I didn't come up with it, I've seen so many people do it, but I've just never really done it before. But this house does obviously have a pool as well, and inside the house there is actually also a gym. So there is 3 bedrooms in this house and there's 4 bathrooms, and then there was kind of like this really big empty space downstairs, and I wanted to fill it with so many more activities that your Sims could do and enjoy, and just a lot more gameplay. And so I actually added a gym into the ground floor of this house as well as an office. I kind of imagine the family to be really active, and so that's why I wanted a gym in here. And with the office, I kind of imagine one of the parents probably handles more of the business side of the family business, and so that's kind of where they do all their work and stuff, instead of in their little Newcrest office somewhere, wherever that work may be. Obviously, if you want to download this, you can have that office to be whatever you want. It can be for whatever gameplay. It'll probably be for like the business career, and I'm thinking this will probably be in my save file. So the family that lives here, I'm probably going to make it so they're in the business career, and maybe all of them are, and that can just be their kind of little workplace, and where they make all these meetings and just do all the things work related. But as the office is downstairs on the ground level, I didn't actually add another computer into kind of like the lounge area or anything like that, but there is another 2 computers upstairs in 2 of the other bedrooms. So there's kind of like the parents' bedrooms, or what I imagine to be the parents' bedroom, and then there's kind of like the 2 kids' rooms or the 2 young adults' room, whatever you want, and they both have computers in there. But kind of going back, I'm just kind of finishing up the garden now, and I created these like little lounges for kind of, obviously we can't use them, but where this is quite a luxury house and quite a luxury kind of pool, I wanted there to be some little fake lounges. So I just pulled out these perfect patio ones, and I kind of merged the ottomans with the little armchairs and created this kind of fake sunbed. Hopefully if we do get an island pack, we can have sunbeds, because that would just be a life changer. And I see so many people do this, and I do this all the time, and it would just stop us from actually having to do this, and we could just use actual lounges, which would be so much fun. I also did use a little, I think it's a My First Pet stuff side table, and I never use that side table, and the reason is because if you actually put it next to a chair or a sofa or anything the normal size that your Sims would sit on, it is so big, like it's so like large and tall in comparison to the sofas. And so where I never use it, I thought I'd use it in this house because it is kind of like a perfect little modern round table. And so what I actually did is I sized it down twice to actually kind of make it look like a normal size table, and then I put a little half wall behind it, and then used this little red shelf clutter object. If you don't know what the red shelf is, it's basically like it's a CC object, and you use it to adjust objects to a certain height that you want, and the majority of the objects in the build and buy menu do actually clip to it, so it just makes it really easy if you want to put something up on a shelf or on a bookcase or whatever, and you don't want to have to press the 9 key a load of times. It just helps you just raise objects to a certain height, and then once you actually delete the shelf, your build won't be classed as CC. So if you actually leave the shelf in, it will look really strange because you'll have this random red shelf in, but if you delete it out of your build, then your build will not be classed as CC. It's just kind of a object to allow you to move things to a certain height, and I use it in every single one of my builds. It's such a lifesaver. It's a time saving thing basically, so you just don't have to click the 9 key a load of times. But if you would like to download it, I've actually got a CC link in my description box. I think I just called it Red Shelf, and so you can go and download it, and I really recommend it. It's one of my useful things I use in every single one of my builds, and it just allows me to just get everything to a certain height, and it's just so much easier. But I actually just used it just to place some kind of objects onto that little round table, which I did in the garden, just because where the table is kind of like set at a certain height, all the objects that you try and place on it will try and clip to it. And so I used the red shelf to kind of get the objects that I wanted to that certain height, put them in the placement that I wanted, and then just kind of added in the little table afterwards, and then they won't clip to it, and it kind of looks like that table is that height, and all the objects are just kind of placing it normally. And with the red shelf, you can get it to the exact height, literally by the millimeter, and it won't look like it's floating or anything like that. But anyway, moving on, as you can kind of see, I've moved in and I'm just doing the interior of the house. So as you can kind of see, I've done the wallpapering and the flooring off camera. I always do them off camera because they take me so long to decide which ones I want, and sometimes I have quite a hard time picking them, and I feel like it makes the video extra long, and it's just unnecessary. It doesn't need to be that long, so I did them off camera. But in this kitchen, I used a base game white tile, just kind of like as a backsplash, and then I used a spa day tile for the rest of the room. And I wanted there to kind of be a breakup in between this house, and so that's why I combined the two tiles. And I also used a Get Famous wooden floor. I don't typically ever I don't feel like I do anyway, tend to use wooden floors in kitchen, but I kind of wanted this wooden floor throughout the whole entire house, and so it just happens to be in the kitchen as well. This wooden floor is from Get Famous, and I absolutely love it. I think it's just so perfect for this house. Where all the interior is very white, it is a very, very white house. I kind of wanted a contrast a little bit, so you have this all white walls and then this kind of really nice muted wooden floor, and I just absolutely love it. But as you can kind of see, I'm just cluttering up the kitchen. It is very, very uncluttered for me. I normally tend to clutter up all of my houses in every single way, shape and form. I try and go all out with all my cluttering in every single one of my houses, but with this one I just felt like it didn't need it, and with a modern build I didn't really want to do loads of clutter, and so I tried to keep it to a minimum. I obviously did kind of go over a little bit in some spaces, but only where I felt like it was kind of necessary. But moving on, as you can see, I'm now doing the dining room. So to get into the dining room, there is a kind of archway from the hallway, or you can access it via the kitchen. And in here, originally when I started doing it, I really wanted this kind of pop of colour in the wallpaper, but after a while I just didn't feel like it, and so I actually changed it to another swatch of this wallpaper. This wallpaper we actually got in a free update, I think around about a year ago or something. It's a really lovely wallpaper. I just don't ever really find myself ever using it, but it does come in so many different swatches, and I decided to change it to the black and white one, and I just felt like it looked so much better and just a lot more modern to me personally. But in here I just put a large dining room table, and then I just put some little plants around the place just to kind of make it look a little bit more cluttered up and a little bit more modern. But moving on, as you can kind of see, I'm now doing the little lounge area. So in here, where it is still all white modern walls, like I said, the whole entire build is basically all white, I still again wanted some kind of contrast in the walls, and so I used this, I think it's a Get Famous brick, and it's actually the same brick that I've got on the fireplace on the outside, and I actually brought it into the inside as the fireplace is kind of on the opposite wall, so it's kind of like behind this wall. I felt like maybe they just didn't kind of plaster this wall up or anything, but I felt like this really broke the room up a little bit more, and I just used these Dine Out columns just either side of it. These are the columns that I've actually been using around the house, and I don't ever typically ever tend to use these ones, but where they are so modern, I kind of felt like it would be suited if I kind of end the little brick wall with kind of like these two columns either side, and I just really like it. I also use this base game white shelf to kind of go around the TV, as I felt like that wall, even though it did have this brick pattern on it, I still felt like it was a little bit plain and boring. So I used this white shelf that we got in a free update, I believe it was the last update actually, and I just put it either side of the TV. I put two either side and just kind of cluttered them with a few objects. Like I said, I tried to kind of limit myself with the cluttering in this house because I wanted it to be very modern and just look very clean and kind of perfectionist. But I felt like if I was going to clutter up this house in some way and in some places, that them shelves would kind of be the perfect place to kind of just put an array of different objects. So I used some stones from Spa Day, which are quite a modern little clutter item. I used some books which we got from City Living. I also used a little hand sculpture which we also got in a free update, and I just tried to stick to kind of like modern and clutter objects instead of more traditional type of looking, just so it kind of fitted with the house and just kind of fitted with the theme that I was going with. But as you can see, I did use the seasoned sofas in this lounge room. Now typically whenever I tend to do more of a modern build, I normally tend to go for either the City Living sofas or maybe the Get Famous ones, but I kind of wanted to experiment with it and try something new, so I actually used the seasoned sofas, which I typically normally put in more traditional style houses, but I feel like in this swatch they do look very modern, and so I decided to go for these ones. I did also use a Get Famous rug on kind of like a centerpiece in the carpet, just because where it is wooden floors I did still want to break it up a little bit, and I used the Get Famous one in this black and white swatch, which I absolutely love, but I don't ever tend to normally use it in that swatch. I always use the Get Famous rugs in my houses, but never really that one, so I thought I'd switch it up again and just use that one. I also did add 2 sets of bookcases in this lounge room because there was kind of like this big empty space towards the back garden, and I still wanted it to be filled with loads of activities, but I didn't really know what to put in it, so I put some bookcases. Obviously bookcases offer so many books for your Sims to read, they get the fun mood lit up, and you can gain skills from reading books, so I decided to add 2 into this room. These are the City Living ones, and they are so modern, and just I absolutely love these bookcases. I use them in the black and white swatch, and I just think they fit this room so perfectly, and especially tie in with the rug a lot. Normally in kind of big lounge rooms like this, I'll typically tend to put kind of like a family computer, but like I said, this house does have a separate office for that, and so I didn't feel the need to put one in. I don't actually show the furnishing of the family office just because I didn't want to make this video really long, and you'll see it in the screenshots anyway. But in the office there is just a little desk with a computer on, there's some bookcases, and then there's just kind of like a little sofa area. Maybe some clients could come over and that's kind of like where they sit and stuff, so that's all in there. But like I said, you'll see it in the screenshots. I just don't include it in this video because I didn't want to make it too long. But moving on, as you can kind of see, I'm just doing the little gym room. So in the gym room I decided to go for a blue theme in here, and that is because I use a lot of the fitness stuff pack in here, like the fitness stuff, treadmills and little, I don't know what it's called, it's kind of like a gym equipment that your Sims can kind of gain muscle on, I think, but I'm not sure what it's called. But I used it in kind of like the blue swatches, and so I decided to go for a Spa Day blue tile on kind of 2 of the walls just to kind of match the equipment. I also did use a Strangerville, I don't know what it's called, but it's one of the new gym equipment things that we got with Strangerville. I used that in here. I didn't use it in kind of like the mother swatch, if you will. It's kind of, there's 2 swatches of this, one that it kind of looks like the mother, and then there's one that's just kind of like a plain one. I decided to use the plain one though because I didn't really feel like the other one fitted. But moving on to the upstairs, I did obviously furnish the hallways off camera. I just felt like they're a little bit boring to watch, and I didn't want to include it and again make the video really long, so I decided to cut them out, but you will see them in the screenshots. And now moving on to the bathroom, again I only show one furnishing of the bathrooms only because they're all the exact same. Like I said, there is 4 in this house, so there is 2 upstairs and there is 2 downstairs, but I decided to show the furnishing of this one as it is the biggest one in the house, and it kind of makes sense to do it in that way. But in here I used the Spa Day wallpaper and the Spa Day floor. I'm not actually sure what other packs I used in this house, but I know I used a lot of Spa Day, especially for wallpapering and the flooring. If you would like to know, I will have the build details in the description box down below, and in there there I just have all the packs that I've used in the house and the price of the house and where it's placed and all that kind of stuff. So if you would like to know and you're just kind of intrigued and you just want to know what packs I use, it'll be in the description box down below. But in here I used a Get Famous shower, which I've really been liking recently. I used it in my Karaoke Legends apartment and I just absolutely love it. So I used it in this one. I also used a fitness stuff bathtub, and then I believe I used a Seasons toilet, and then I just used some cool kitchen counters as kind of like the sink area, and I also used a little cool kitchen sink as well for kind of like the little basin. But now moving on, I'm doing their parents' bedroom. So in here I also did use a spa day tile and just kind of like the white walls. Like I said, there's a lot of white walls in this house, but in the bedrooms I try to do kind of like feature walls so it kind of breaks up a little bit. In here it just happens to be the spa day grey tile and I absolutely love it. In here as well I use the vintage Glamour stuff bed, and I believe I use that bed in every single one of the bedrooms. I'm so grateful for it because it is the most modern bed that we have in the game, and it kind of just suits modern builds. It's just kind of perfect for modern living and just modern style houses. So I use that in here. I also use a base game bedside table either side, and I use this Get Famous lamp, which I absolutely love. I did also clutter them bedside tables up just a little bit. I didn't want to go too over the top like I normally do, but I still wanted it to look like it was a lived-in house, and so I thought I'll just add a few tissue boxes and a couple of bits and bobs just to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. I also did add the, I believe it's a get together wardrobe in here. There was a 4 tile space next to this bedroom, and so I just kind of felt like it fitted in so perfectly, especially being a very modern wardrobe. But I am now just kind of finishing up this room. I had a rug from, I believe it's Get Famous, and the rug that I use is one of my favourite rugs that we actually have in the game, and it's just got like a burst of colour, and I just feel like the room kind of needed it, and so I just added that one in. But moving on, I'm now doing one of the bedrooms. So in here, originally I was going to go for this Seasons bed, and I was actually going to use these City Living sofas. So the sofas that I'm talking about are these high up sofas, so they've got quite a high back, and normally if you merge them together you can create this kind of looking bed frame, and I just absolutely love it. But I just didn't feel like it was working in this room. I originally tried to use it with this Seasons bed, but I just really wasn't liking it, and so I do actually switch it up to be the same bed that I used in the other bedroom but just in a different swatch, and I feel like it looks so much better. I also did use this kind of little shelf to kind of mimic a bedside table. I kind of wanted to give the illusion that it was kind of like a floating bedside table, and then I also used some little wall lamps as well instead of like a kind of normal lamp that you'd normally put on a bedside table, and I just think it's really cool. I've wanted to do this in a few of my houses, but normally I don't ever do this kind of modern style of house, and so I felt like I needed to do it at least once in this house, and so I decided to include it into this bedroom. But in here, as you can kind of see, I did the vintage Glamour kind of wallpaper as the feature wall. So like I said, in all of the bedrooms I wanted to have at least a feature wall just to kind of break up the white a little bit, and so it decided to be the vintage Glamour wallpaper in here in this white swatch, which I think is so beautiful. I also use this Get Famous statue in this kind of like dinosaur head on this kind of like marble plaque, which I really like. But the original size of the statue or sculpture is really big, and I find it really hard to put into places, and so if you size it down it actually fits onto chest of drawers so perfectly, and so I decided to use it into this room just because I felt like it really fitted in. And a lot of the Get Famous items are included in this house just because it is a very modern pack. In some ways it's kind of like two halves of the pack. There's some kind of like mid-century style, and then there's kind of like more modern style furniture, and I just felt like it really fitted in, so I decided to use it into this room. I also used the vintage Glamour stuffed dressing table. In this room there was kind of like a little bump out which was 2 tiles, and it was the perfect space to put a little dressing table in, and so I used the more modern looking one in this room, and I just feel like it's so beautiful and it really ties in the room together. I also did add this little desk area over here just opposite the bed. Originally I was going to put a painting above the desk just to kind of tie the room in together and just kind of make it look a little bit more realistic, and just so the walls weren't as bare. But as time went on I decided to change that painting to actually be a TV, and so your Sims could lay in bed or just sit on the bed and watch TV, and I think it's just a perfect little place just to chill out after a hard day at work. But I am just going to finish this room up, and I'm just moving on to the last bedroom in this house. So in this bedroom I went for more of a blue theme, so you can kind of see I use the same bed that I used in the other 2 bedrooms, but I used it in the blue swatch, and I also used this spa day paneling as kind of like the feature wall for this room. I did also add the same wardrobe that I added in the parents' bedroom but just into this room, and it is the get together walk-in wardrobe, but I used it in kind of like a silver swatch just to kind of match with the colour scheme of this room a little bit better. I also added this vintage Glamour mirror, which I think is so beautiful, and it's a really big mirror. I didn't use the one that was actually for the medium wall height because the mirror comes in 3 different heights for the small, medium and large wall height, but I decided that the small one just kind of fitted in the best. Also did add a little desk area. Like I said, 2 of these bedrooms do have computers in, and so I just used the vintage Glamour desk for this one. And there was kind of like this little spare empty space, and so I decided to add a little keyboard into here just so there is more gameplay to do in the room and there's just more activities for your Sims to do. I am just going to finish off this room and add a little chest of drawers which matches the bedside table, which is from base game, and I just use it in this white swatch because I just felt like the white swatch was the best one, and it obviously did match the bedside tables as well. But I am actually going to end this voiceover here. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed watching me build this little modern family house. I really enjoyed it, so hopefully you liked it as well. As always, if you do like my content, then please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speed building video. Bye guys!